You've been chasing her, calling, texting, rearranging your plans, all in the hopes of getting her attention. But instead of pulling her closer, you feel like she's slipping further away. Frustrating, right? Well, here's the truth. The harder you chase, the more she runs. But what if I told you that stopping, yes, stopping, is the key to flipping the script entirely? When you stop running after her, everything changes, trust me. You don't want to miss the part where I explain how her mind works when she starts chasing you instead. It's the twist most guys never see coming, and it's worth staying for. Oh, and here's something you'll want to look out for later. When she finally reaches out, there's one mistake most guys make that destroys all the progress they've made. I'll explain exactly how to avoid it in Chapter 5. So stick around. 1. Why chasing pushes her away. When you chase someone, it sets off a subtle, almost primal reaction. The harder you pursue, the less space there is for her to feel curious about you. In psychology, it's called the law of diminishing returns. The more someone gets of something, attention in this case, the less value they place on it. By constantly chasing her, you're giving her an abundance of your energy and focus. And what happens to things we have too much of? We stop appreciating them. This isn't about women being cold or ungrateful. It's about how humans are wired to value scarcity. Now let's flip it. Think of the people in your own life who give you space. Maybe it's a colleague, a friend, or even someone you dated before. The less accessible they are, the more their presence feels significant. That's what happens when you stop chasing her. Suddenly the abundance disappears, and she starts to notice the absence. The idea of scarcity is just one piece of the puzzle, but what's really fascinating is how this psychology plays into the deeper dynamics of attraction. Let's talk about that next. To the pull of intrigue. Human beings are naturally curious. When something or someone feels predictable, our brains file it away as figured out. But when there's mystery, when there's uncertainty, the mind can't help but linger on it. This is the hardest questions to get out of your head are the ones that don't have clear answers. The same principle applies to attraction. When you stop chasing her, you introduce uncertainty. Instead of you being the one who's predictable, always texting first, always available, you become the one she's wondering about. And here's the kicker. Intrigue isn't just about what you do. It's about the space you leave. When you stop filling the gaps with constant messages or attempts to connect, her mind naturally starts filling them in. Why hasn't he texted me? What's he doing? That space isn't just empty. It's magnetic. This isn't about playing games. It's about creating room for curiosity to grow. When she starts wondering about you, she's investing her own mental and emotional energy into the connection. That's what shifts the dynamic. Now that we've talked about the pull of intrigue, let's go deeper into the psychology behind this. There's one concept that explains why stepping back works so powerfully. It's rooted in how our brains are wired. 3. The scarcity effect. Scarcity isn't just a marketing trick. It's a deeply ingrained part of how our brains evaluate value. When something feels rare, it's automatically perceived as more important. It's why people camp outside for the latest phone release or obsess over limited edition sneakers. The same principle applies to relationships. When you stop chasing, you're no longer a constant presence in her life. You go from being always there to being someone she has to think about, someone she has to reach out to. And that shift is massive. It's not that she didn't value you before. It's that your constant availability dulled her ability to recognize it. Here's the fascinating part. The scarcity effect doesn't just make someone more interested in what's rare, it actually triggers a feeling of loss. When you step back, you're creating a sense of emotional scarcity, and the brain reacts to that as if it's missing something essential. This isn't about manipulation. It's about understanding the natural ebb and flow of connection. The more space you allow for her to miss you, the more she starts to value what you bring. And when she feels that absence, that's when she starts leaning in. So what happens next? When you stop chasing and create that space, how does she respond and how do you handle it? The next part breaks it all down. For how she reacts when you stop chasing. When you stop running after her, the dynamic shifts in ways that can feel surprising. At first, she might not notice why. Because she's used to you being there. You've trained her unintentionally to expect your constant attention. But as the absence grows, her mind starts working overtime to figure out why. Psychologists call this phenomenon reactance. When someone feels like they're losing something they've taken for granted, it triggers a desire to regain control. Suddenly she's thinking about you. Why hasn't he texted? What's he up to? Is he talking to someone else? These questions pull her into a loop of curiosity and emotional investment. Here's where it gets really interesting. Her response depends entirely on how you've carried yourself before. Stepping back, if you've been calm, confident, and grounded, your absence feels significant. It creates the sense that she's missing out on something valuable. But if you've been needy or desperate, the absence doesn't hold weight. It just feels like relief. The key here is this. Stepping back works best when you've built a foundation of self-respect and emotional strength. It's not about punishing her for pulling away. It's about letting her experience what life feels like without you constantly chasing. Now here's the part one mentioned earlier. The moment she finally reaches out. Most guys blow it right here and undo all their progress. But if you know what to do, and more importantly, what not to do, you'll hold all the power. Let's dive into it next. 5. The power of not reacting. When she finally reaches out, it's tempting to dive back in with the same energy you had before. But here's the thing. The power isn't in what you say or do. It's in how you respond. Imagine this. You've created space, and now she's texting you out of the blue, asking how you've been or why you've been distant. This is her testing the water, seeing if she still holds the same control over your attention if you respond with over-eagerness, answering instantly, flooding her with questions. You and do everything instead. This is your chance to show her the version of you she's been missing. Keep your tone calm. Your response is measured. Let her see that you're not the same guy she took for granted. This doesn't mean playing games or ignoring her. It means showing her that your world doesn't revolve around her. Here's where the psychology deepens. When you don't react emotionally, it creates a sense of stability and intrigue. She starts to wonder what's changed about him. Why isn't he acting the way he used to? And that's what draws her closer. Staying grounded also allows you to assess her intentions. Is she reaching out because she truly values you? Or is it just an attempt to regain control? By not reacting impulsively, you give yourself the clarity to see the difference. Now that you've mastered the art of staying grounded, it's time to talk about what happens next. How to rebuild the connection on stronger terms. 6. Rebuilding the connection without chasing. The next step is critical. You've stopped chasing, but how do you rebuild without slipping back into old patterns? This is where everything comes together. When the dynamics shift and she starts showing interest again, it's easy to fall back into the habit of over-investing. But here's the truth: attraction thrives on balance, not extremes. Rebuilding the connection means keeping the same principles that created the shift in the first place. Instead of rushing back to where things left off, take things slowly. Let her meet you halfway. If she's texting you first, let the conversation flow naturally without overwhelming her with attention. If she's asking to meet up, agree, but don't rearrange your entire life to make it happen. Think of this stage as a dance. You're not chasing her, you're inviting her to step forward. And when she does, you meet her with calm confidence, not with neediness or over-eagerness. This balance keeps her intrigued, because it reinforces the idea that you're a man with his own life priorities and standards. And here's the best part. When she starts to invest in the connection, it builds a sense of mutual respect and interest, something chasing could never achieve. The real power here lies in consistency. Don't make her your sole focus. Keep working on your goals, spending time with friends, and living a life that fulfills you. When she sees that she's part of your world, not the center of it, her respect and attraction for you grow naturally. And remember this: the point of stepping back was never to manipulate her into wanting you. It was to regain your own sense of value and self-worth. That's what makes you truly magnetic. Not tricks, not games, but genuine confidence in who you are. So where do you go from here? The key to lasting attraction isn't in what you say or do next. It's in who you become. And that's where the real transformation begins. If this hit home for you, let me know by tapping that like button and dropping a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you're ready for more no-nonsense insights like this, make sure to subscribe. See you in the next video.